Hi there, I'm Lorcan Allen, Agri-Business Editor with the Irish Farmers Journal, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Stewart Gavin, Agri Underwriting Manager with FBD Insurance. Stewart, we're just going to have a little chat today, I think, about farm insurance, the importance of, of having adequate, proper farm insurance, and the dangers on farms as well. It's something that we grew up on farms. It's places that we love to be, but they're inherently dangerous places. Maybe just give us a bit of background in terms of the hazards of farms as you see it from your position as Agri Underwriting Manager with FBD.
Thanks, Lorcan. I suppose firstly, it's worth noting farming is the most dangerous occupation in Ireland, and this is borne through by the number of fatalities. And I suppose from an insurance perspective, we actually see not only the fatalities, but also the very serious injuries that happen on farms. I suppose looking at it, the level of work varies so much on farms, from an administrative type tasks, farm planning, to I suppose the more physical type of tasks, such as dealing with livestock. Machinery is a big one. And I suppose like risk assessment and highlighting risk and taking a little bit of time to evaluate tasks that farmers are completing does bear fruit in certain circumstances to prevent incidents happening. Notwithstanding that, I suppose just taking the dry spell of weather that we're after coming out of, there was a lot of pressure on farmers through actually getting silage cut and actually getting slurry out, agitated, manure out again. So at different points during the year, there can be a lot of pressure on that farm family to hit certain deadlines, and I suppose that does impact as well in relation to the number of incidents and the record on farm currently.
Yeah, and you're right. It's times like this of the year when farmers are busy that accidents happen. People are rushing, and they're trying to, as you say, beat the rain or beat the weather. Accidents can happen. What are the big causes of accidents on farms that farmers maybe should be cognizant of? You mentioned livestock, silage, machinery. What from your experience in FBD, what are the things that farmers should really focus on in terms of that can cause accidents on their farm?
Well, I suppose firstly, it's very important when you bring the accidents and incidents into the farm discussion that farmers actually understand what level of protection they have with insurance, because in certain circumstances, the incidents that occur could even outweigh the actual asset value of the farm. So it's very important, firstly, farmers understand the cover they have available to them, the cover they've chosen. And contrary to public opinion out there, in some circumstances, not all farm products are written on a like-for-like basis. So that's very important for farmers to take a little bit of time to understand, query their policies, and actually gauge what protection they actually have with their individual underwriter. I suppose on a positive note for FBD and for farmers, our branches are open next Monday, the 29th of June. And there, farmers will have the ability to call into their FBD office, 34 of them around the country, to actually query with an expert that they probably know already and trust, and who are competent in advising them. So it's very important to look at the incidents and also look at the protection available under your policy.
Okay, and it's kind of, we mentioned there the you know often the cost of an incident or an accident can outweigh the entire asset value of the farm. Um, we want to talk about today about maybe the importance of liability insurance, be that public liability or employer's liability on your farm. I mean, farms, there's people constantly always coming onto farms in terms of, people coming to do jobs for farmers and that kind of thing. In that kind of way, how important is a good, public liability, and what does it cover a farmer for? If you have public liability in your insurance policy for your farm.
Yeah, you're right, Larkin. I suppose firstly I might just take you through liability in general on FBD's farm product. Actually, there's a lot more to liability than people may understand, or they may understand the basic concepts of it. And as I mentioned there, like, individual underwriters have all specific terms, conditions, and exclusions in their individual policy documentation, which is the contract of insurance. Just to go through, broadly speaking, what's available with FBD, farm liability is contained under Section 4 of our policy, Section 4A has public liability, personal legal liability, products liability. Then you have Section 4B, which contains employer's liability, and Section 4C, which is environmental liability. It's worth noting, and I suppose it's important for farmers to understand, farmers who buy public liability with FBD insurance also get what's called Section 13 commercial legal expenses, and they also get Section 4C environmental liability as standard. So that's an awful lot of protection with just potentially a perception that I have public liability. Legal expenses, commercial legal expenses cover is something we've introduced in the last 18 months, and this provides a free legal advice helpline for the farmer. That's just not specific to farm legal advice, it's any type of legal advice. In addition to that, there's a free counselling helpline for the farmer, the farm family, or even the employees of the farmer to avail of. This protection also contains tax protection and employment dispute and defence. So just on tax protection and employment dispute, it's very important if a farmer receives a notification from the revenue of a pending audit, or in the event of an employment dispute or a letter from the Work Relations Commission, that they immediately contact the contact numbers provided to avail of the services and the protections afforded under that policy. So straight away you can see that there's a lot more to just liability than public liability, as a lot of people would understand.
Yeah, it's become a much bigger thing as well, and like it's very comprehensive what you're after listening out there in terms of the things that you're covered for, and how your business could be impacted in a myriad of different ways in terms of a liability claim against your business. I suppose one thing as well is the expansion of our dairy industry over the last number of years, and even on other farms as well. We've seen, I suppose, more farmers are employing people than ever before, and the importance of having a good employer's liability insurance cover, not just for to protect your business or in case of any accidents to your employees, or to any disputes or anything like that, and maybe not just full-time employees, part-time, or anybody who comes to your farm, that's giving you a hand in specific or small jobs. Maybe give us a run through some of the importance of that, Stuart.
Yeah, like the employer's liability, as you noted yourself there, Larkin, like there's a range of different farms currently in the country employing part-time, casual labour, full-time, multiple full-time employees. So there's a complete different makeup across the country between different sectors. The employer's liability cover with FBD has a limit of indemnity of 13 million. That would kind of outline the severity of the limit and the type of incidents that you're protected for with that limit. Ultimately, it is protecting the farmer where they're deemed legally liable for an injury to their employee carrying out farm activities on the farm. What we've seen, and I suppose with COVID-19, we've seen a lot more family members back on farms. And if you actually consider, even to this day, farms within Ireland are still made up predominantly of the family farm labour unit. FBD is unique in that we provide family member cover as standard under our employer's liability protection. So what that means is family members who reach the age of 14 years are protected under our employer's liability policy as standard. This is a little bit different to the industry, and some providers specifically exclude family member protection from employer's liability. And the onus is on the farmer to seek out or declare what family members they would like covered. So at different stages during the year, I suppose insurance is only something people look at a point in time, and it's this attention to detail that's absolutely critical for farmers to be protected. In public liability, for example, as well, Larkin, what we've seen is, I suppose we've seen a differential in contract wordings across the marketplace as well. And for example, with public liability, we all understand that animals escaping out into the road or neighbour's property and causing damage, those type of incidents are the norm within public liability. But for example, take construction. So construction on farm buildings, and you alluded to the fact that there has been a lot of, I suppose, advancement in the dairy sector, but with TAMS, there's been also a lot of investment in other sectors of farming in Ireland. And what we've seen there is Construction protection is standard with FBD under both employers and public liability of our farm product. And this is a little bit different to the market norm with construction because underwriters tend to, protect their policy and remove the exposure by way of exclusion. So again, I've mentioned regarding policies being like for like in the market. They're actually not. The exclusions contained in policy documentation can sometimes, preclude a farmer from making a claim. Construction by its nature as well is a serious one because you have alteration, you have repair, you have renovation of farm buildings, and also you have new builds going up. So like a fall from a height from as little as 4 to 5 feet can be fatal, and ultimately there can be a lot of serious life-changing injuries out of those type of events. Farmers probably will hear about the fatalities, but they may not hear about the serious life-changing injury that can occur. Legislation in this area is predominantly around the Health, Safety and Welfare Construction Regulations 2013, and it does put a huge onus on in the eyes of the law on a farmer who's carrying out works that fall into the category of this legislation.
Okay, so thanks for that, Stuart. A lot of detail there. Have you any other advice for farmers, maybe in terms of when they're taking out their farm insurance policy every year? I think it's, as you rightly said, it's the most important purchase of maybe a farmer might make in the year.
Yeah, you're correct, Larkin. I suppose firstly, I've just given a broad outline of cover there, so it's important to engage with your FBD branch. I suppose, look, it may be topical at the moment, but how many farmers actually know if they have lightning cover on their livestock? I've seen some threads on social media advising that lightning cover is included in electrocution peril, for example. It's actually not. So I suppose the takeaway there is, talk to the experts, understand what cover you have, understand what protection is available by your insurer, and that you actually know where you're exposed and actually what you've transferred to your insurance company. I suppose I would sum up by saying FBD's farm liability protection allows farmers to trade with absolute certainty and are sure of the protection that they're afforded under their policy. There's absolute certainty with that because with property, for example, you may actually know the exposure, be it a farm building at 50, 100,000, you would be aware of your exposure you're holding. But with liability, it's down to the severity of the incident that may occur.
Okay, no, thanks very much, Stuart. And I suppose just to kind of recap there for our viewers today, the importance of farm insurance. It's not something that a lot of people take for granted and they shop around looking for the best price. But as we said at the top of the show, a farm is like, one of the most dangerous occupations that you can have. There's a lot of risk on a farm, be it machinery, be it livestock, be it, building work or falling. So it's important to have, a good comprehensive farm insurance policy that allows you to farm with certainty that you're covered in events, be it public liability insurance, employer's liability, and all those things that we've talked about, and the great detail we've got from you, Stuart, this morning. I would point to our viewers as well. In this week's Farmers Journal, we've a very comprehensive supplement on insurance and the importance of it, and I suppose as well kind of things about risks on your farm that you need to kind of be cognizant of. And I want to finish by thanking Stewart Gavin, Agri Underwriting Manager with FBD, for his time today.
Thanks, Lorcan.